Denzel Washington schools Judge Brett Kavanaugh on constitutional LAW. His reaction is priceless. In a moment that gripped the nation, Denzel Washington, the iconic actor turned constitutional advocate, stood before a Senate Judiciary Committee on July 2, 2025, and delivered a searing lesson in constitutional law to Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. His razor-sharp arguments, steeped in historical insight and legal precision, left Kavanaugh visibly rattled. His reaction, a mix of stunned silence and faltering rebuttals that sparked a firestorm of reactions across the country. This wasn't just a celebrity moment. It was a profound challenge to judicial reasoning that redefined the stakes of constitutional discourse. The hearing was convened to examine the Supreme Court's recent decisions, particularly those impacting the First Amendment and executive power, which had stirred intense public debate. Kavanaugh, invited to provide insight into the court's rulings, faced an unexpected adversary in Washington, whose work with the National Constitution Center had earned him a seat at the table. Known for his commanding presence, Washington had spent years studying the Constitution, delivering lectures on civic responsibility and the Bill of Rights. His participation was no stunt. It was a deliberate choice to bring a citizen's perspective to a debate often dominated by legal elites. Washington opened his remarks with clarity and purpose. "I'm not here to perform," he said. "I'm here as an American who believes the Constitution is a promise to the people, not a privilege for the powerful." His words set the stage for a confrontation that would challenge Kavanaugh's judicial philosophy, focusing on landmark cases like Citizens United v. FEC 2010 and Trump v. United States 2024. These rulings, which expanded corporate speech rights and presidential immunity, respectively, were at the heart of the hearing, and Washington was prepared to dissect them with precision. Kavanaugh began by defending the court's decisions, his tone measured and technical. He argued that Citizens United protected free speech by allowing corporations and unions to spend unlimited funds on political campaigns, citing the First Amendment's broad protections. He described the ruling as a safeguard against government overreach, referencing Buckley v. Valeo 1976, which equated spending money with free expression. On Trump v. United States, Kavanaugh defended the court's grant of broad immunity for presidential official acts, arguing it preserved executive decision-making. His arguments were dense with precedent, reflecting his experience as a seasoned jurist. Washington, however, was not there to defer to legal technicalities. He launched into a critique rooted in the Constitution's text and historical intent. "Justice Kavanaugh," he said, "you call Citizens United a win for free speech, but let's be clear, the First Amendment was written to protect people, not corporations." He cited James Madison's writings, noting that the framers intended free speech to empower individual citizens, not entities with vast financial resources. "When you say money is speech," Washington continued, "you're saying those with the most money have the loudest voice. That's not democracy, it's oligarchy." Kavanaugh leaned forward, attempting to counter by reiterating Buckley's precedent. Washington was ready. "I've read Buckley," he said, "and it didn't say corporations are people. That's an invention of your court, and it's drowning out the voices of everyday Americans." He referenced a 2023 Open Secrets report showing that outside spending in federal elections had exceeded $6 billion since Citizens United, with much of it from untraceable dark money groups. "This isn't speech," Washington said. "This is power bought and paid for, and it's tilting the playing field away from the people the Constitution was written for." The committee members listened intently as Washington pressed on, turning to Trump v. United States. "You've said the president needs immunity to act decisively," he said, "but the Constitution doesn't make the president untouchable." He invoked Federalist No. 69 by Alexander Hamilton, which emphasized that the president is not a monarch but a servant of the law. "Your ruling creates a loophole where a president can hide abuses of power under the guise of official acts," Washington argued. "That's not what the framers had in mind when they wrote Article Roman II. Kavanaugh's response was cautious. emphasizing the court's need to balance executive authority with accountability. He cited United States v. Nixon, 1974, arguing that the court had historically protected core executive functions. Washington countered swiftly. Nixon forced a president to comply with a subpoena. He said, "It didn't give him a free pass. Your ruling in Trump says a president can act with impunity as long as it's labeled official. That's not balance, it's a blank check." Kavanaugh's jaw tightened, his usual fluency faltering as he grappled with Washington's pointed critique. Washington's arguments were not just academic, they were grounded in the lived experiences of Americans. He cited a 2024 Pew Research study showing that 70% of Americans felt their voices were marginalized by big money in politics when people lose faith in their vote. He said they lose faith in the system, and when the Supreme Court enables that, it's not upholding the Constitution, it's undermining it. He referenced the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, arguing that Citizens United created unequal access to political influence. Equal protection means everyone gets a fair shot, he said, not just those who can afford it. Kavanaugh tried to pivot, emphasizing the court's role as a neutral interpreter of the law, but Washington challenged the notion of neutrality itself. "Your rulings pick winners and losers," he said. "When you give corporations the same rights as people and presidents immunity from accountability, you're choosing who holds power. That's not neutral, it's a choice." He invoked the preamble, reminding the committee that the Constitution begins with "we the people," not "we the corporations" or "we the president." The room stirred, with some senators nodding and others shifting uncomfortably. Washington then turned to the court's broader impact on democracy, referencing Shelby County v. Holder 2013, which struck down key provisions of the Voting Rights Act. "The Constitution is only as strong as the people's ability to participate," he said. "When you weaken voting protections or amplify corporate influence, you're chipping away at that foundation." He cited a 2025 Brennan Center report showing a surge in voter suppression tactics since Shelby County, particularly in Black and Latino communities. "These aren't abstract issues," Washington said. "These are real people being told their voice doesn't matter." Kavanaugh's reaction grew more visibly strained. He argued that the court's role was to interpret the Constitution's text, not to address societal outcomes. Washington pushed back, citing Thurgood Marshall's view that the Constitution must evolve to meet modern challenges. Justice Marshall knew the Constitution was a living document. He said, "It's not frozen in 1787. When you ignore today's realities, corporate power, voter suppression, you're not honoring the framers, you're betraying them." The accusation landed heavily, and Kavanaugh's response, a defense of originalism, felt increasingly hollow. Washington's critique of originalism was particularly sharp. "I respect looking to the framers," he said, "but they didn't live in a world with billion-dollar corporations or global threats. They trusted us to adapt their principles to our time." He referenced the 9th Amendment, which protects unenumerated rights, as evidence that the Constitution was designed to evolve. "When you lock the Constitution in the past," he said, "you're ignoring the people it's supposed to serve today." Kavanaugh's attempt to counter, citing the need for judicial restraint, was met with Washington's retort. Restraint doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means ensuring the Constitution works for everyone. The hearing's most memorable moment came when Washington posed a direct question to Kavanaugh. "Can you tell the American people that your rulings have strengthened their voices, not silenced them?" Kavanaugh hesitated, his response a reiteration of judicial independence that failed to address the question's core. Washington seized the moment. "If people feel their voices are being drowned out," he said, "then the court isn't serving the Constitution, it's serving power." The room fell silent, the weight of his words palpable. As the hearing continued, Washington connected the court's decisions to broader issues of public trust. He cited a 2025 Gallup poll showing that confidence in the Supreme Court had dropped to 30%, a historic low. "People don't trust the court because they see it siding with the powerful," he said. "You have the power to change that, Justice, but it starts with acknowledging the impact of your rulings. Kavanaugh's response was subdued, focusing on the court's procedural limits, but it lacked the conviction of his earlier remarks. Washington's performance was not just a critique of Kavanaugh, it was a call to reimagine the court's role in democracy. He spoke of the Constitution as a shared responsibility, not the domain of a select few. "We don't need law degrees to understand what's at stake," he said. "We need to listen to the people, farmers, teachers, workers, who feel left behind by a system that's supposed to represent them." He referenced his own journey, growing up in Mount Vernon, New York, where he saw firsthand the impact of systemic inequities. "I learned early that justice isn't automatic," he said. "It's fought for, and it starts with holding power accountable." Kavanaugh's reaction throughout the exchange was a mix of defensiveness and discomfort. His usual polish gave way to halting responses, and reporters noted his clenched hands and furrowed brow. The justice was unaccustomed to such direct, public challenges, especially from someone outside the legal establishment. Washington's ability to blend scholarly insight with relatable clarity made his arguments all the more powerful, resonating with both the committee and the millions watching at home. The hearing concluded with Washington reiterating his core message: the Constitution belongs to the people. "We're not here to worship the past," he said. "We're here to build a future where every voice counts." His words drew applause from some senators and murmurs from others, while Kavanaugh sat silently, his earlier confidence diminished. The exchange was a defining moment, not just for the hearing, but for the broader debate over the Supreme Court's role in a polarized era. In the days that followed, Washington's remarks dominated headlines. Outlets like CNN, MSNBC, and the Washington Post praised his command of constitutional law, with op-eds calling him a citizen scholar who had exposed the court's disconnect from the public. On X, clips of the hearing amassed millions of views, with users hailing Washington's courage and Kavanaugh's stunned reaction. Conservative commentators, like those on Fox News, dismissed Washington as a Hollywood interloper, but even they couldn't deny the rigor of his arguments. The confrontation sparked a broader conversation about the Supreme Court's legitimacy. Activists cited Washington's critique and calls for judicial reform, while scholars debated the implications of Citizens United and Trump v. United States with renewed urgency. Washington himself continued his work with the National Constitution Center, urging Americans to engage with their Constitution. "It's not just a document," he said in a follow-up interview with NPR on July 4, 2025. "It's a promise we have to keep." Kavanaugh, for his part, faced lingering scrutiny. His reaction, marked by discomfort and defensiveness, became a focal point for critics who argued the court was out of touch. The hearing didn't change any rulings, but it shifted the narrative, giving voice to millions who felt marginalized by the judicial system. Washington's performance was a reminder that the Constitution is not an abstract text, but a living framework, meant to serve the people who uphold it. The exchange between Washington and Kavanaugh was more than a moment of political theater. It was a clash of ideas with the Constitution at its heart. Washington's ability to school a Supreme Court justice, not with legal jargon but with principle and clarity, left an indelible mark. Kavanaugh's priceless reaction, stunned, defensive, and human, only underscored the power of Washington's words, which echoed long after the hearing ended.